Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of this podcast. This is the Winners Ways podcast, as you know, and this is where we talk about successful strategies. We share strategies, winning ideas with our audience so that they can, adopt those strategies and also win in their lives. And today I'm excited because we have a guest with us. We have Sri Chellappa, who is the president and co-founder of Engagely, an Inc. 5000 company. I'm going to let Sri introduce himself to you guys so that you can get to know him better. So, hey, Sri, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks a lot, Bola. It's a pleasure to be part of your show, and I hope we have a great conversation here.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So let's get to know you better, Sri. Can you please tell us about you, what you do, and what my audience will learn from you as we speak today?
Okay, absolutely. So just to give a quick background, I'm originally from India. I moved here when I was 21. And my background has been in engineering and management from an education perspective, but I've done like 5 other things along the way in the last 20 plus years of in active working life. Part of that has been running successful startups. Engagely right now, which is a HR tech platform for employee engagement, performance management, and employee learning and development platform, is an Inc. 5000 company. We started that about 7 years ago, so it takes a long time to be very successful. So I think we still have a long way to go ahead of us. And then before that, I was running a healthcare tech services company. I was one of the 4 main partners, and which was also an Inc. 5000 company. And I exited that a few years ago. So we had a very successful exit. It's a very successful company that's on its way to being a unicorn soon. So those are my 2 big successes there. Along the way, I've had other passions, and I've worked on how to figure out how to integrate those passions with my life. So that includes making movies. I've produced, written, or directed about 5 feature films that have gone on to different cable channels like Showtime, 20th Century Fox, Netflix, Prime, Tubi, other channels like that. 2 documentaries on top of that. Now I also run a recording studio for independent musicians, and I'll be looking to start a music label as well on the side. So quite a few things along the way. And I love to, I guess, talk about how to balance your life and your health and your mental agility while doing more than one thing at a time.
Wow, that's awesome. You have quite a rich resume right there, Sri. And we have some identical background here. I'm also an engineer by background, and I'm also an immigrant, as you may have guessed. So, and I like the story you just shared about your company, and which we are going to get into later, Engagely, because this podcast is about, sharing strategies, sharing successful strategies. And of course, definitely you have some success that you've already accomplished. And I know my audience, they will be eager to learn from you. So let's talk about startup. You started Engagely, and you also spoke about the healthcare tech company that you started. So what led you to starting these businesses, if I may ask?
Well, the healthcare tech, I didn't start. I was one of the partners that led the growth. So I joined in a little bit later. But I think just to be clear there, so there's no miscommunication. But we did grow that company 50-fold in my period running that part of the company. So the startup ecosystem is very attractive for people, I guess, like me, who like to have creative control and are willing to execute hard and without having to ask for permission. right? So let's say you're in a company and let's say you are an engineer and you say, I have some ideas on how to market this product better. If you have that level of freedom where you can work with marketing and you can work with your CEO and be able to execute on your ideas and at least try them out, not every idea will be successful, but you're not getting shot down for your ideas. I think that's perfectly fine place to be, but those places are very hard to find. If you work for a large Fortune 1000 companies, most companies would be like, you play in your sandbox, don't come and tell marketing what to do. And don't, talk to our salespeople about things that you want to do and confuse the situation or whatever the reason may be. And if they feel like they're working on things that doesn't excite them at all, or if they're working on things that they know is not the right thing to be working on because the market is changing, then entrepreneurship is for those people, right? And I would say that's what drove me, because I was working in consulting. I felt I was just doing a lot of things without really seeing the results of it myself, because you move on from one client, another client, another client. I wanted to own the outcome as well and be able to work on the strategies and implement them. Because a lot of the times customers just ask you to do a certain thing and then they want you to go away, right?
Yeah,
So I think that was my reason behind doing entrepreneurship, because I could blend my creative juices with working on the execution part of the plan and see some success. And so far it's been a good ride.
Nice. So you spoke about the freedom that you get, in a startup, the flexibility and the ability to execute. And I think those are very, very important. So when we think about the startup space, what do you think it takes for a business to be successful in terms of, because there are quite a number of uncertainties, you are just bringing up all these ideas together. What are those essential ingredients that you say, these are the things that are, important for a startup to become a successful business down the line? What are those things in your opinion?
Well, one is you have to be comfortable with not knowing all the answers and with the uncertainty of a startup. You have to be comfortable with that. If you are looking for very clear answers and clear solutions and clear outcomes very quickly, you're going to be highly disappointed, and that's when people quit. So if you are comfortable with uncertainty, I think that's a key ingredient of running a successful startup. The second I would say is a strong sense of conviction in your belief. Because if you are not convinced that this is going to work, then you can't convince others to buy what you're building either. So the conviction in your belief is paramount, that what you're building is essential and it is solving at least a specific problem in the market that maybe the market is not caught onto yet. The third thing is people give up too soon. It takes a long time for startups to be successful. All these overnight successes that you read about, like Instagram or something else, some of them have been in years in the making, and some of them are in the news only because they have been overnight successes. But there are businesses around you everywhere, and some of them taken decades to build. An example of a startup in the UI, in the robotic automation space, if you've heard of a company called UiPath, which is a 20 some $billion company now, publicly traded. UiPath was started by an Eastern European person. I forgot the name of the individual and the country he's from, but it took him 10 years to get to 1 million in revenue. And then in the next 5 or 7 years, they were at multiple billions in revenue. And it's because it takes a long time to build that. If most people would have given up in that time period. And not really adjust it, because you have to be at the right place at the right time, and sometimes you're not at the right place at the right time. Maybe you have the right product, but the market's probably not ready for you yet. So you have to be really be patient and continue working on it. Be comfortable with the uncertainty and have very strong conviction around your offering. So those are some of the things I would say are very important. There are obviously a few other things that you should take into consideration. Obviously, having a good team, having good partners, getting lucky along the way. You got to get lucky. You got to get lucky with the 1 or 2 customers that fund your startup, because you can only go so long funding it yourself. So there are some elements of luck but it takes patience. If you're ready and you work hard and you focus on the market and you focus on your product, eventually you will get lucky.
Absolutely. So I like that you said people need to be able to, start without knowing everything, right? Ability to face uncertainty. You talked about having that strong conviction that, hey, this business is going to be successful, and that's a belief in whatever you are doing. You spoke about perseverance, because people give up too soon. That's very important. People shouldn't give up. You talked about patience, because when you start, you may not see results immediately. You need to keep doing it, keep innovating, keep getting better. Then maybe after a while, you will be seeing results. And you spoke about the importance of having the right team and partners alongside you. So that's very important. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. So let's look at Engagely, your company. Do you want to, I know it's a employee engagement company, but do you want to break it down for us? What do you guys do, and who are your customers, if I may ask?
Yeah, so the problem that we are solving in the market today is organizations are struggling to retain their employees. They're struggling to connect their employees, especially as they get more and more distributed. People are working remotely in different offices, in a distributed environment. Organizations, even as small as 50, 100 people, now have people working in 3 or 4 different locations at the minimum. Not everybody is co-located. So you need a software to connect them, engage them, where they feel like they're part of a culture. They're getting tools to learn and grow. They're getting transparency of the objectives of the organization and their purpose. And our tool solves those problems, right? So our tool essentially provides a common space we call it HR tech because it is people management platform essentially, where employees can collaborate. They have social tools, they have recognition tools, they can take online training within the platform. They can set their goals and align their goals to organizational objectives. So there are multiple things like that in the platform that allow people to work as one cohesive organization while they're not in the same room, in the same office, right? And that's essentially what we do, is provide a platform for organizations to be able to run what I call a highly engaged, high performance team.
Oh, perfect. So basically your business is a B2B kind of business. Okay, that's good. That's good. So we've talked about startup. Then for every business that you start, you want to grow as well. What will you say it takes to grow a business? Because let's say your business is making $1 million today. 2 to 5 years from now, you may be targeting $5 million in revenue. So what are those essential things that an entrepreneur must know in order to grow their business?
Yeah, I think the problems, as they get bigger, your only problems don't go away. They just change. Right. So what you have as a problem when you're starting off the ground, and if you solve those problems, you'll get to 1 million, let's say, right? At 1 million, you have a different set of problems now. Now you have, let's say, 50 customers making 1 million in revenue. Your question is, how do I now scale it to get to 500 customers? Right. And that's a different set of problem, because another problem is not about getting revenue. It's about building a brand and competing with the big fish out there, right? Because there are companies that probably have 5,000 employees, 5,000 customers. How do you compete against them? So now you have a different problem in that sense. You may have problems around infrastructure, of being able to give effective support. A founder or a CEO or president can give support to 2 or 3 customers, but once you have 50 customers, you need to provide the same level of personalization and the culture and the support to those customers whether you're at 5 customers or 50 customers, and then figuring out how to scale the governance of your organization around that. So the problems keep changing. So you got to keep solving newer and newer problems. And I think the key is to identify very clearly what those problems are at that stage. So if you are at, let's say, 5 million and you want to get to 50 million, my problems at that point would be, how do I solve a brand recognition where I can scale? And how can I scale more efficiently without having to cold call thousands of people every month, right? And so your problems at that point will be figuring out how to do things at scale by using more automation, being more smart about it, building a better brand, building a better product that scales, building a better process for support, and existing customers as well, because you don't want to lose customers as you grow either. So that's, I think, is the key, is to really, and every business will have different set of problems. So there's not one answer I can give. I think the key is to really hone in down and figure out what is your current problem that is preventing you from scaling, right? And only the entrepreneur in that seat can really answer the question.
Oh, perfect. So you talked about brand recognition, building your brand. I especially like the idea of automation. You have to look at the process. If your current process attracts only 10 people, what can you do to scale up so that the process, or whether it's using automation, can attract 100, so that's very important. And you say you must do this without neglecting your current customer, because they are the revenue stream, and you have to continue to make sure you treat them nicely. So that's good. Thank you for sharing that with us, Sri. So you see, there are quite a number of people that may have a business idea on their head that, hey, I want to start this certain business, whether it's in real estate or healthcare or any business as the case may be. How can you, they call it market research or feasibility study. How can you vet your idea before, you start spending your time on the business, or before you start investing your capital on the business? How can you, vet it and at least have some, maybe 50% probability that, hey, this business can be successful? Is there any process for checking that?
The true way of measuring whether this is something that is valuable is see if somebody will actually pay for it, right? There are a lot of people say, oh yeah, this is cool, I might use it, it's great, but is that person willing to pay even $1 for it, right? And that's when you know that idea is totally worth it. Because many times you hear ideas, I hear ideas from entrepreneurs and wannabe entrepreneurs all the time. Many of the time, it looks like what I've seen is they come up with an idea or a solution, and then they start looking for a problem. It's like a solution looking for a problem to solve, instead of the opposite way of a problem that your solution solves. First, identifying the core problem that you're trying to solve, right? So identify what core problem you're trying to solve, and who are you trying to solve that problem for, and then ask them about whether the solution addresses that problem, right? So that's the first, is to validate your problem first, and then validate the solution for that problem. So I think that's one way to go around getting that feedback. So I'll give you an example. When Engagedly started, we were trying to solve the employee engagement problem, which is the name Engagedly, right? And our solution at that point was, this is year 1 of our startup, was to build a social platform for organizations where employees can be on an internal Facebook. And it's like a Facebook style, but different, slightly different, where they can share documents and ideas and, and give each other praises and things like that. Seems like something everybody would need, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's why we built it. And we built it. And I can tell you, after talking to about 100 customers, I could not sell a single license. I had a couple of pilot customers, so I'm not counting them, but I'm talking about for 6 months, I was talking to customers and giving them demos. And I realized it was a problem that was there, but people were not willing to pay for it, right? So we did a small pivot where we added some of these strategy oriented stuff, right? Building a performance management platform, tying employee performance to engagement. And suddenly our sales just started taking off. In 1 month, I closed my first 5 customers after not closing any customers for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And then that's when I knew, okay, I have some product market fit. So being able to learn from the market. And so so the thing is, if you're trying to find a perfect, so here's the key, right? If you're trying to find a perfect solution for a problem, you may not find it, but the important thing is to get started so that you can eventually discover it. Because there's a discovery process along the way, which only happens once you start. Because you will never, I mean, I'm not saying never, some people get lucky and they find it, but sometimes it takes time to discover the real solution to the real problem.
Wow. So I totally get that. So that's very important. So the core message there is that we need to validate the problem. There must be a problem, then you now find a solution to the problem, then you'll be able to sell. So that's very important. Now, in terms of startup, definitely there are times you can go alone. But I also know that there are some times you may need to find partners, so that you can work with other people to build the business. So how do you do that? Is there, I don't know if you have partners with you at Engagely. Your first business, of course, you were part of a team. So how do you find the right people on board with you so that you can work together to grow the business?
I think my philosophy and my experience, not just with me, but looking at other entrepreneurs who have partners, is that it is serendipitous. It just happens where you find a partner and somehow you align on an idea. So if you look at Apple, right? When Steve Jobs met with Steve, what's his last name? I forgot his name. Steve Wozniak, right? They met and they had this idea together and they started together. I don't think Steve Jobs would have done it by himself, or Steve Wozniak could have done it himself. They were very complementary.
Yeah.
Obviously, then after that, the paths went separate ways, and Apple is the largest or most expensive company out there today. But I think so. It happens like that, right? If you look at Tesla, Elon Musk actually did not start Tesla, even though people think he did. He came in a little bit later.
Yes.
And I guess took credit first for being the founder, but that's fine. But he had partners who had started it before, but they couldn't figure out how to scale and build and do that. And Elon had that grit and the audacity to make that work. Same thing's true with even Microsoft. Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer and some other people who started that. Not Steve Ballmer, was some other person, Paul Allen, and Bill Gates. So there are actually very few startups where one person is completely responsible for the success from day one. There are examples of that, and a lot of them happen because they just run into each other. At a company they work together, or maybe they met somewhere and they started talking about an idea and they aligned with the idea. So that's how you find a partner. I think if you have an idea and you force fit a partner, that doesn't work. And I have seen that fail multiple times. Even if the partner seems so good on paper, like this person is really good at sales, I'm really good at building the product, and the person expresses some interest, but there's not alignment of their approach, alignment of their, where to compromise, where somebody might say, okay, I'm going to trust your approach on this, but trust me on this part of the business. And those things have to all work out. And that alignment only comes after having worked together a little bit, or maybe running and having more discussions about it.
Okay, so that's good. Now we know that there are some times when you start your business and you want to keep growing the business. There's a piece, and that's funding. Maybe you may not necessarily have all the funds by yourself to grow the business. How do you go about, raising funds so that you can continue to grow the business?
Unfortunately, there's no easy answer to that. If you notice how people get funding, it's all based on who they know or where they are. And there's a reason why there's so many startups getting funded in San Francisco or Boston or Austin, Texas now to some extent. If you start a business in Mobile, Alabama, I think you might have a tough time getting funding for your SaaS startup, unless you are connected to some rich, country club family or something like that. It's really ultimately a lot of it is luck. You saw this. I don't know if you saw this startup that went bankrupt after raising $120 million called Reach. I think it was called Reach or Fast. It was called Fast. It was a payment startup, raised $120 million last year. Payment processing startup funded by Stripe, which is a big multi-billion-dollar startup by itself. They blew through $120 million, only had $600,000 in revenue to show for it, and had to shut down operations 2 weeks ago. So on what basis did they get funding? You can't say it was based on revenue. It was obviously based on some ideas that they had, and obviously who they knew. Being in San Francisco helped in that case, right? So I think that's the hard part. So if you are in one of these tier 2 or tier 3 cities, it's going to be harder. But ultimately, I am in St. Louis, which is also one of those cities where there's not necessarily a lot of funding and there's necessarily a lot of recognition for startups, even though it is getting better. There are about 2 or 3 VCs in St. Louis as well. But your success goes up based on the network you build to some extent. Ultimately you have a network, and then if you continue to build your network and show results, you show that you're continuing to build something, I think people will invest. Because it comes back to that, having that connection, right? You can't just be running around with a PowerPoint all day long. You have to actually start building something with what you have, the resources you have, and then keep talking to investors about it. Some people just empty out their retirement funds and start a business, right? So if you really believe in your business, do it. That's how then you're paying for it by saying that I believe in this enough to liquidate my 401k or liquidate my IRA or sell my house or take a second mortgage on my house.
Awesome.
I wouldn't talk people out of it. And there are a lot of financial advisors say don't do it. I'm saying if you believe in your idea, do it.
Right. I like that. There are quite a number of people that, they just withdraw money from their 401k and just put all the money on their business. Yeah, some will go on to succeed and some will fail, but you don't know what you can achieve until you actually try it. So that's very good. Thank you very much, Sri, for sharing that with us as well. You are a busy man, Sri. I see that apart from running your business, you are a filmmaker, having produced 7 films and documentaries. You also run a music production studio that should keep you busy. I always talk about work-life balance here on my show. So how do you relax? How do you balance, being busy, being productive, making money with, maybe spending time to relax, unwind, and just enjoy yourself?
Well, I think this is how I enjoy myself. So to me, work life is the same. It's all integrated. Mm-hmm. For example, this morning or yesterday morning, I woke up early, did my calls. I have teams internationally, so I have to wake up pretty early to do my calls. And then I took an hour off to go to the gym and work out. And then I came back and started, working again on my other projects, on like the music and film related projects in the evening. So you just figure out what schedule works for you, and I think that's why the flexibility of that schedule is one of the reasons why I didn't want to be in that 8 to 5 punch the clock, show up at an office space type of job for very long. I did that for 8 years and I decided it wasn't for me, even though the security of a paycheck was great and I was doing great. I was on my path to being a partner at a big 5, and I decided I just didn't want to pursue that path. So anyway, I think it really comes down to how do you want to live your life? Even if some uncertainty brings some flexibility and ability to pursue my passion, being able to spend time with friends and family and other things, I think we really need to plan that out a little bit better. So the other thing is I use my calendar very effectively, right? Everything is in my calendar. So my workout is in my calendar. My time with my daughter is in my calendar. All my travels are sometimes planned weeks in advance. It's also on my calendar. So if you put it on your calendar, that's one way to committing to that. You need to commit to time for yourself, whether it is reading or if you're writing. I'm working on a book, which has been a little bit of a struggle. I'll be honest. So I need to do a better job of blocking time off to write, and blocking time off to do things I really enjoy doing. So I will say I succeed probably 8 out of 10 times. There are 2 out of 10 times I don't succeed in that myself.
Yeah, so I get that. We are all work in progress. I also, try to block calendar, just to make sure that I'm prioritizing my time. But I still struggle with that as well. But I get it. Work-life balance is about, focusing on those fun things, productive things in our lives, and allocating time, so that we are productive and we optimize our time. So that's very good. Thanks again for sharing that.
Definitely.
So I do not want to, create an impression that all is about success, or everything that you touch turns to gold. And whenever I bring in a guest on my show, I always ask them this question, and it's about maybe mistakes that you've made in your career or in your business, and the lesson that you learn from it. Because for me, mistakes, if you use them properly, they make you better. So if you don't mind, can you share maybe one business mistake that you made, and what lesson you learned from it?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think we've made so many mistakes. It's not just one, So some of the mistakes are really, I wouldn't call them fatal mistakes. So thankfully they were not fatal. We could have raised funding sooner. We just raised funding last couple of months ago on a Series A on our startup. We could have raised our funding sooner. Getting the right people hired sooner is some of the things that I could have done a better job at. But nothing fatal so far, thankfully. I have done some mistakes on my film projects, for example. I've made quite a few films, and most films actually lose money. Independent films, especially, I would say 95% of the independent films, if not more, lose money. So I think one way to look at it is making a movie itself is a mistake. When your odds are so stacked against you, because you can't compete with Netflix's own production and Prime's own production. I mean, it's pretty much like a oligopoly in that market. It's like making music. You can make all the great music you want, but you can't get through and beat through all the record labels who have pretty much cornered the market and the airwaves and all the recommendations on Pandora and Spotify. So it really depends on if you look at it as a mistake or if you're just looking at it as following your passion and see where that falls. So I think those are some of the mistakes I've made in the sense of, making a couple of the films I made, I probably didn't have the right people in promoting it. I did get some of the mistakes I made was trying to go with some distributor that and ended up screwing me over, and we never got the money, and we had to go to court and things like that. But you don't know what you don't know until after the fact, right? You don't know who's going to come and cheat you until later. So I think those are some of the things I would say. Some of the things I wish I had done differently was having a better health and workout regimen in my younger years. I was fairly sporty and athletic, but I didn't have a very strong regimen, both in terms of eating well and working out well, which I do now for the most part. I think those things, I would say are some of the things I would have done differently in my younger years.
So that's a very good life lesson that you just share with us. Balancing all these things, whether it's exercise, whether it's diet. Those things are very important. And the core message here is that mistakes, if we learn from it, we are gonna get better. So as we are rounding up on this interview, Sri, what message do you want to leave with my audience, and also how can they connect with you so that they can whether it's on Engagely or on any social media, so that they can connect with you and know you better?
Okay, the message I would say, I'm going to go back to the movie analogy. Your life is your movie and you're the star, right? So make sure you're playing the right role as the star of your film, right? And so just look back and say, is this the movie that I'm a star in? Is this what I want to be a star in? And is this the kind of star I want to be in that film? And the movie only runs once, right? So just I'm saying, just take that into perspective as you're living the movie called life, and you as the leading star in that film, if that is what you want to be playing. To reach me, obviously, my name is Srikant Chellappa, or Sri Chellappa, president, co-founder of Engagedly, which you can read here if you're seeing the video, ENGAGEDLY. I'm on LinkedIn as well as Twitter, so they can follow me there. They can reach out to me on those channels as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Sri. We have come to the end of the interview. I hope you guys found this helpful. We talked about startup, funding, partners, and the mindset that it takes, to achieve success. I've benefited a lot from this conversation. Thank you again, Sri. Till next time again, guys, keep winning. Keep winning, guys.
Thanks, Paul.
I'm gonna